our clients are doing a good job. They have their systems and they're doing the verification activities, they're checking their own systems to make sure that they're effective. But quality managers often work on their own against management, against maintenance a lot of the time, and having somebody come through who understands it from their perspective, they know what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve. Sometimes it's just validation that what you are doing is fine, what you are doing is working, and you can see some improvements, or have a look here in another area, this is something maybe you need to focus on in the next 6 months. It helps validate what they're doing with their system, because it can be quite lonely being a quality manager sometimes.
Trying to find maybe flaws in their system that they may fall into, and to notify them of these, highlight these issues, so they have an opportunity to correct these problems before they happen. An example would be, and this is probably, it's taking a fairly extreme example, it was a client that I visited who was processing produce, fruit and vegetables, and they were supplying to a very high-risk sector. So they're supplying their product into aged care, healthcare, etc. So the immunocompromised in the general consumer society, and they had a process flow chart that demonstrated the steps in their process. And whilst the HACCP plan had probably been looked at a gazillion times by different auditors, I looked at it and I said, "Oh, where's the dipping step?" Knowing full well that, for example, they processed products like potato, sweet potato, which would oxidise, and for a quality perspective they dipped it in sodium metabisulfite to make the product stay white and nice, or orange and nice, for that period of time. And they looked at me and they said, oh, it's not in the process flow chart. So then we followed that through, from picking that up, not being in there, we followed that through, and then we established that the product indeed was in fact dipped in sodium met. There's a regulatory requirement about declaration for sulfites on the product. Their packaging had no declaration. It was a legal requirement. Inevitably, that company may have got themselves into major trouble and major fiasco, both from their effect on the consumer, but also from a regulatory perspective as well. And in identifying that, because it hadn't been picked up before, in identifying that, we were able to move that company forward and make sure that they were meeting their minimum regulatory compliance requirements.
Sometimes we have to give major non-conformances, or even very occasionally a critical. And some companies go into meltdown when that happens, but they need to look at it from the point of view is, if I've given that as an auditor, I can't go and broadcast that information around the world, and they've got 28 days, or in some cases longer, to actually put something in place to rectify that situation, usually before a recall, before, worse, a food poisoning.